treat, because we have a little gal that's going to come up here and literally blow you away with her story. She's right here, by the way. This little mama of 5, she's got 4 boys and 1 girl, is going to share her story about something that happened almost 5 years ago that would change their lives forever. See, we can all close our eyes. Go ahead and do that, because we need to. Just take a little close of your eyes. And picture our homes and our farmsteads and see everything that we have built and worked so hard for. Only to know that in one instant, that can all change forever. Open your eyes now. Monica is a great girl who I didn't have to twist her arm too hard to beg her to come speak to you all today. She shared with me that appropriately so, when she was in high school, she played the leading role of Dorothy in The Wizard of Oz. She lives right down the road here, but when she isn't at home, you can drive down the roads in Nemaha County and see this woman working. She is a real farmer, doing real farm things. She looks really pretty, but she really does look like a farmer sometimes. I drove down the road once and saw her and her whole little family all working together, putting conservation on the ground. She works hard and plays hard too, and I heard she's a heck of a good cook. This story she's about to tell is pretty amazing, and after you hear it and see the pictures, you will know that someone was really looking out for her little family that day. Please welcome Monica Becker.
I'm not standing at the table, I'm standing here. Many of you know me, some of you may not. I'm Monica Becker. My husband Royce and I have 4 boys, 1 girl, ages ranging 17 to 8. We live just 2 miles west of town here. A little background, I was raised on a small farm at Wetmore, and this summer of my freshman year, I began working on a dairy. I worked there full-time until our 2nd child, and then cut back to 3 or 4 days a week until 2015. Since then, I help her out around the house when I can. I also began working as a sub for the Postal Service in 2015 because we all know farming has not exactly been great income the last few years. My husband grew up on a farm as well and worked with his parents growing up since he's graduated. They have a cow-calf herd, feed out fat cattle, and farm row crops. They also do some custom works for others. By the time our youngest 2 were preschool age, it was easier to take them along with us, so we helped Royce on my days off. And when they were in preschool and school, I realized I was never home on my days off. Royce had me helping more and more, and I truly love it. None of that was probably necessary information for today's topic, but when you work side by side 8 to 14 hours a day, you understand it's not a job, it's a love and a way of life. Loving what you do is the easy part. Having to deal with what you can't control is a whole different story. June 2010, I was at a clinic with a sick child and the other little ones when a storm moved in. My husband called the receptionist and said I needed to wait the storm out there. We waited in the OR hallway until it was all clear, and he called me and said the shed that we had just finished building 4 months prior had blown away. I thought he was being dramatic and was probably missing some tin off the roof. When I got home, I got the whole story. Royce's brother Randy had an aerial spraying business and had just landed the helicopter when the storm moved in. Royce, Randy, and our oldest, Ethan Becker, pushed it in the shed and shut the door when the wind hit. It was a straight west wind that the co-op clocked at 98 miles an hour. It buckled the garage door, forced the frame of the door to give way. When the wind came in, it had no way to get out, and the pressure pushed the east wall of the shed out. Through all of this, those 3 were still in the shed. They took shelter under a combine that was totaled, as well as a beam head, the helicopter, and I can't really remember what else. So we built the shed back stronger, using a steel frame instead of wood, and replaced the equipment that wasn't repairable. Randy did not replace his helicopter and now just flies for others. We were very thankful everyone was okay and it had not blown anything into the house. So many of the other details now seem unimportant or easier forgotten. Or maybe it just feels as though that was a trial run. Fast forward a couple years and a very nice house remodel. It was thankfully a Tuesday, May 28, 2013. Tuesdays are my day off from the dairy, so the kids were not home by themselves. My boss called me around 2:30 to tell me we were in a tornado warning. Royce was working in the shop at his dad's, so I called him. He decided to come home. We watched the clouds with some neighbors that were driving by, and I saw a small rope funnel on the sky northwest by Centralia, away from us. So I took a picture, uploaded it to WIBW. Royce asked what the radar looked like. I said, I don't know, it's on Disney Channel. Note to self, if your kids are home by themselves, watch satellite, Netflix, or whatever else, they will not see the warnings if they are not on local channels. Get a weather radio. So we had the older boys wake up the younger ones from their naps and head to the basement with Gatorades, Oreos, and boots to hang out. As the clouds grew stranger, I checked the weather again, and it had my rope picture on the TV, and then they showed the radar. It was the most prominent hook I'd ever seen, and I told Royce it should be right there, southwest of our house. Practically immediately, we saw a wall cloud, and then some clouds lowered, and you could see dirt begin to lift from the ground about 2 miles southwest of the house. I took about 4 pictures, called his parents to take shelter, and he called the Corning mayor to tell him to get the sirens on now. We grabbed the laptop and headed downstairs, and he kept saying, our cattle are going to be gone. We had 120 feed cattle at our house. He says they're going to bust through the fence. Corning's going to take a direct hit. It's just on that side of the road. This is going to be bad. We crowded into the cinder block shower, and his phone rang constantly from people wanting to make sure we had taken shelter. They were all either watching it on TV or could see the tornado from where they were. They kept saying, it's big and it's not moving. We went downstairs around 4:10. We waited at least 20 minutes. I kept praying the rosary with the kids to keep us calm and distract them while he received updates. It started sounding really windy. We heard some wood crack and some glass break, and then it quit. He called a friend who was 3 miles west and said, I think it's past us. And his friend said, it's not even there yet. It's huge and it's not moving. Roy said, okay, we'll stay down here. He was still standing up from the phone call when he said, my ears just popped, that's bad. He sat down and we heard a horrific roar. We had arms interlocked, a child on my lap, leaning over them and holding onto their ankles with the blanket over our heads. His phone rang again. It was my brother-in-law. It was so loud, Royce just answered the phone yelling, Skeeter, it's taking our house. It got 100 times louder, and he said there went the roof and lost connection. I truly feel for what Skeeter went through, because for 20 minutes he didn't know if we were okay, but we did. Like so many other stories we've heard, my parents were watching the news and knew it had to be right there, but us not seeing the huge funnel was a blessing. We were yelling out the rosary to drown out the sound for the kids, and in that helpless situation, there was nothing you can do but pray. The younger ones were screaming, the other ones were crying, and I remember stopping after several Hail Marys and begging Royce, when is it going to leave? It had to have sat there for several minutes. It was a horribly unusual storm that only moved 5 miles an hour, sitting there, grinding everything. Yes, it's louder than a train, and my kids decided a couple weeks later it's more like sitting in your car in an automatic car wash when it's going over the roof, times 5,000. Who knew that a car wash could be so traumatizing? But what most no one knows is that the center of that storm is the most high-pitched whistling sound you will ever imagine. And then I heard hail, and that to me was the sign that it was over and the floor above our head was still intact. So amen. We hugged, kissed, and checked everyone over. Not a scratch. The window on the back side of the shower had broken, and from the shower we could see our TV in our basement living room. There was a large white rectangle box. It was the light reflection from the staircase. Roy said, the outside wall's gone. He went up the steps, which faced west, and immediately said, the shed is gone again. I proceeded up the steps, and there were small pieces of tin on the steps and the basement floor. Cow and pig poop and dirt covered everything. As I got to the top of the steps, I saw the shed was gone, and I looked to the north. There were 3 walls gone from the mudroom, and I could see the vehicles because the garage walls were gone. I'm always the optimist. I clearly remember thinking, okay, it only hit that side of the house. I can deal with that. Then I turned to the south, and there's a grain bin on my living room. I walked back downstairs to see my 5 babies all standing in a corner, sobbing and consoling each other. I said, guys, we are fine. We are okay, and it's just stuff. We are going to be fine. With my camera still around my neck, I took the picture of them. My oldest said, "Why are you taking pictures?" I said, "Because we are fine." And Mom taking pictures is normal. They needed to see normal. Royce called his dad to come get us because he could smell propane. I called my parents and a neighbor to let her know what they would be coming home to. All 7 of us walked out and got into Roger's truck because the clouds were still stirring. He took us to his house so the kids could stay safe at Grandma's and Grandpa's, and then they headed back to the house to survey the damage and see what was salvageable. There were people there instantly, trucks and trailers within the hour to load things that could be saved. The firemen pushed me to get everything out of the storeroom in the basement because it would most likely flood that night. Thankfully we did because we ended up getting like 5 inches of rain. Those hours and the next days were a blur. So much so that my sister would force me to eat when I didn't feel hungry and remind me we had to go to Betty's because we had not eaten all day. People came with equipment, food, supplies, helped us pick up and save whatever we could and get it to a secure place before more bad weather came in, which was every night. I had a few times that I had tears when people gave me hugs of support, but there was too much to do to dwell on what was lost. That night we stayed at my mom's. Red Cross had already stopped by and given us a baggie with a shirt and shorts, which was our new PJs, toothbrush and soap. It had to be midnight when we got to sleep and up by 5 o'clock or earlier. Lots of tossing and turning. I heard my mom doing a few things through the night, and when we got up the next morning, there were neat piles of our clothes on the table. Mom had washed them because that was the only thing we had to wear. When you don't have socks or underwear for your 5 kids, that is the lowest point you feel. But because of the amazing family, friends, and community, and complete strangers, that was the only morning we ever felt that. We headed over to the house at sunup to assess it in daylight and see where to start, what insurance would let us start cleaning up. The next 2 days was salvage what you can and pile the rest. Going through things the best you could, not being able to comprehend what was no longer there and not knowing where to put the rest. Looking back, we realized Royce never really walked through the house. I had plenty of help and support, and he was needed as he had 3 buildings of things scattered and trying to unmangle. We would toss and turn those first nights. If we noticed the other one was awake, we would just cling to each other. I would cry quietly, not knowing what we were going to do, where we were going to stay, but knowing we never wanted the kids to see or feel that. He had his moments of having seen the endless list of damaged equipment and didn't know where to start or how to keep going. We just kept saying one day at a time. When we were busy, we didn't have the time to think about what was lost. There was so much to do and pick up, you truly became numb to it. The equipment and many structures were owned by his parents' family farm, so they were just as affected as we were. There were many quick but important decisions that had to be made. What do you replace? How much debt do you go into to get back to where you were 2 days ago? And having these quick decisions when everyone is stressed, short on sleep, and 50 to 100 people around all the time asking where to put stuff because there's no building to put it into. Think about the last big purchase you made, whether it be an appliance, a vehicle, a piece of equipment. How long did you research that item and shop around before making a decision? One of my favorite mottos, there's always something to be thankful for. Blessing, the tornado hit in the middle of the day. You may be able to tell all bedrooms upstairs had walls and debris laying on them. Middle of the night would have been tragic. The crazy thing about our bedroom, all walls and debris went east. Our bedroom wall was actually laying on the car, but my dresser that was standing against that wall fell west into the room. Therefore, throwing my jewelry box, which sits on top of it, into the room and under our bed. It was at least a couple hours before we got that beep. I found it, flipped it over, found both of our wedding rings, put them on, and found our briefcase safe key. Farmers rarely wear their rings. Blessing, the tornado picked up without hitting his parents' house a mile away. With the shop, with all the tools, the feedlots with several hundred head of calves, and not touching the feed tractors, so that was a normal part of his day that he still had, besides the 2 dead calves in the feedlot from debris. Blessing, 2 tractors, 2 planters still in the field because we were finishing planting and not in the shed or near the house. Another blessing, we only lost 3 of the calves at our house and they did not break out of the pens. In the lost category, a seed cleaning and storage shed, 3 grain bins, another large metal shed, a hog shed, our implement shed, and then there were 2 combines, 2 bean heads, a sprayer, semi-trailer tipped over, grain cart tipped over, quad track with all the windows broke out, a hitch of a field cultivator cut in half and thrown across the road, end dump semi-trailer tipped over, or the end dump semi tipped over, our Suburban, the bale truck, and many repairs to our pickup. Not to mention approximately 50 big bales that were nowhere to be found. And even though it's very unimportant, the fridge that was sitting directly above our heads has never been found. In the awesome category was the amazing outpouring of help and support of everyone. We got a rental house that Friday, got help lined up to move in on Saturday. Many people had called with beds and furniture that we could use. So Saturday, while Royce and an army of helpers rounded up those items and moved in, I enlisted the help of a best friend and his sister to go to Topeka with me and the kids. We picked out some special blankets, car seats, let them pick out a pair of tennis shoes, got towels, silverware, and house supplies. We got home that afternoon and pulled up to the rental house with easily 20 cars there. Someone was mowing the yard, and I walked into a house that was freshly cleaned, furnished, fully stocked with food and clothes for everyone in the closets and in the dressers. I would have never dreamt that after enduring so much loss, the 2 words I said more in those 5 days were thank you. It was a huge blessing and my lesson to pay it forward. We truly live in the best place ever. Regaining normalcy is where occupation separates our traumatic event from others' experiences. When most people have a tornado, fire, or other sort kind of uncontrolled event hit their home or farm, they pick up the pieces, find a place to stay, just as we did, but they can return to work in a week or two and proceed with rebuilding. Not the case. This is his work, it's his way of life, and the source of income. I wish he could have left for 10 hours a day and had a distraction from reality. Luckily, fellow farmers understood this and set up a cleanup day. We had over 300 people show up on the following Monday to walk the fields. The amount of debris was absolutely mind-blowing and completely impossible on our own. Getting back to day-to-day work was constantly filled with challenges and sometimes frustrations. I was at the rental house trying to settle the kids in, go through bags and bags of clothes, deal with insurance stuff, figure out house plans, and Royce and his dad had to figure out where to start. Before we could replant, they had to work the ground, so that meant buying a field cultivator. On their way to look at one a couple hours away, he sees a Suburban for us and calls me excited, and I was very short with him. I believe I said, "Whatever, I don't even care right now." He did not need that on top of everything else, and I had to explain to him later. I had just spent 4 hours on the phone with replacement insurance, which I thought I was prepared for, until they said they needed to know how many pairs of socks, underwear, shirts, pants for all 7 of us. A vehicle was the farthest thing from my mind, and he took the brunt of my frustration. They did buy the field cultivator, and we went back within the next day or 2 to buy the Suburban. Those purchases are hard to know what to spend when you truly have no idea how much money you are going to be spending that year. But you have to have them. Then they replanted the fields where the corn was destroyed by the tornado, saving the field by our house for last, and kept the air bubble in the tractor. I'm pretty sure they had at least 8 flat tires by the time they were done with 15 acres. We also had to tear up the field of alfalfa near our house because of the metal that the cattle would ingest, so there's a loss of hay. After planting, you spray. You had to go buy the sprayer also. Insurance is set up according to what you pay for something, so after a few years and a major increase in equipment prices, the new to us sprayer cost tens of thousands more than our old one was insured for. For hay season, we were able to replace parts and repair the baler and rake. Many other equipment items weren't covered for the sake of not wanting to be insurance poor, but yet had to be replaced. We definitely simplified and did without where we could. Then comes wheat harvest. Needed a combine, semi-trailer, header. By fall harvest, we needed grain bins and a grain cart. And that was just the work side of my husband's 3 months. We had looked at a few houses the weekend after the tornado and started working on house plans immediately and knew we wanted to do as much of the work as we could ourselves. I look back and remember very few struggles for either of us. We've always had a strong marriage and open communication, which is why we kept each other focused on looking forward and dealing with the day in front of you and what you needed to get through it. A couple personal trials I recall. When we first looked at our golf rental house, about 8 miles east of here, Royce said, "Do you want to just buy it and be done?" Sounds easy. I sighed and said, "It isn't home." He agreed, but neither of us could say we didn't have a home. You would come to learn, a home is not a house, but it's a place where you will always belong. About a month later, it was a Sunday, he had fed cattle and was needing to spray. I called to see if he was coming home for lunch, and he was at his parents'. He'd eaten there and was waiting for the winds to calm, and I could hear company there and lots of visiting, and I grew more bitter and resentful as the day went on. And when he came home, he knew I was upset, and I explained to him our last house was close enough he would spend the breezy hours at home with me and the kids instead of with others. Sunday is often the only day we get him for a few hours, and now we've lost that too. I know he didn't need that, and it was not fair, but he didn't need the extra stress, but we needed him. His weaker moment came when he was replanting the large open field to the north of our house. I had the kids at the boys' baseball game and was heading to the rental house about 10 p.m. I called him to tell him how the games had gone, and he sounded distant. I probed what was wrong. He said, "This just plain sucks. When I plant this field, I see the kids out in the yard. At night, I see the house lights and yard lights, and it's absolute darkness. It is a horrible dream." We talked our way through the hard times, drove out of our way more often to be together or ride with him in the field, and worked through the daily issues together. He got some funny looks and laughs from people, especially the contractors, when he said, "We need to be in the house by harvest, finished or not." I stepped in and said, "Finished." He knew he needed to eliminate that worry and workload at harvest time, and I would be much closer to help. We did a lot of the work on a house ourselves with amazing family. He dug the basement on July 1st. I ran around as the contractor, picking out windows, brick, trim, cabinets, and flooring, bringing home pictures to get his approval. After many long, hot, sweaty days, we moved in October 11th. He went to the field that afternoon. We didn't replace everything. You simplify, you learn what you can do without, and that's okay. You are no longer keeping up with the Joneses. You are simply keeping your head above water, and every task is an accomplishment. We still deal with the financial setback of the events that this magnitude carry with them, but we've never looked back and said, "What if?" or thought it would have been easier if we would have thrown in the towel. Farmers deal with all sorts of these adversities in their life, just not all usually in a couple of months. You deal with it just the same. Take care of the task in front of you. Tomorrow you tackle the next job. We have seen many families go through terrible life-changing events, and we will always know ours could have been so much worse. We only lost things, and things are replaceable. Someone asked us in an interview how we stayed so strong. I said we had no choice, we had to for the kids. They were missing enough of their own things without seeing us distraught. He said, "I think I would have went and curled up in a corner and cried." We laughed. We said, "There were no corners. There were no walls." The privacy of our home was ripped open and thrown around, and we just have to pick up and keep going. It's a hard moment when you realize you've lost control of nearly everything you had. And he likes to tell me I have control issues. I've always made sure me and the kids went with Royce whenever possible, baby seats, diaper bags, and all. And that summer I feel it was the beginning of me working with my husband. We worked on the house well together, and that carried over to other farm tasks. When the kids went back to school, even if it was just preschool for a few hours, I used that time to help him more and more often. When they were home, they went with us. I still tried to work a couple days a week at my other job, even if it's just for grocery money. But in my mind, I knew our farm and his family farm was our future. If having less or doing without means making his life or certain tasks easier, then it was absolutely worth it. This time working together has continued to grow even more over the last several years. There are very few jobs I'm not capable of doing, and few that I may be refusing to learn. But this is just my most important lesson. To understand and relate to what your spouse does all day when they leave and feed and drive the tractors, go with them every day for a week. I was once that mom with 3 kids under the age of 4, and at my wit's end at 5:30, had zero patience when he got home from the field at 8 o'clock or later, and I would be angry and jealous and who knows what else. We now leave the house when the kids get on the bus or when the sun comes up in the summer. He feeds the fats while I feed the cows, and if he needs to spray, bale, or anything else, I'll feed the fat cattle. I'm also right there helping him with moving, working, and weaning cattle. There's still book work, running the grain cart, headers, going after seed, keeping track of what's planted everywhere, getting anhydrous, running after fuel, making sandwiches, and I can run the combine, but I refuse to learn the semi. If the kids aren't in school, they're out there with us, putting in tile lines, or their favorite, picking up rocks. When we do get home, even if it's a couple hours before him, I have the house and kids stuff still to do, and nothing is more irritating than someone asking you what you did all day, implying it's easy work. My ongoing joke is I'm going to go get me a farm wife. So we come home to hot meals, clean house, and laundry done. Go out and work by their side. I know this work isn't for everyone. Not everyone works well together. But at least ride with them, even if for a day. I promise you will love and appreciate each other more, and that will make it easier to get through anything God puts in your path. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you, Monica. I had to go back in the bathroom a minute ago and put on my entire face of makeup. I thank you for that. That was good. I saw people wiping their eyes and I'm like crying back there. It's hard. Thank you for your powerful story. I told you it would blow you away, pun intended. Thank you, Monica, for sharing your story. It just goes to show that we just never know what tomorrow brings, but whatever happens, you can overcome it. Okay, you have all been so super attentive, and now it's time to go stretch your legs and visit the booths. Go grab another roll. I have a lot, and I had a board member telling me he was going to take them home, and I guarantee you he does not need to do that. And so please visit the booths, have some rolls and coffee, and we're going to come back here at 10:25.